Ever wonder how some people just seem to nail it, like in any field? They just excel. Is it just luck or some kind of magic talent you're born with?
Hmm.
Well, today's deep dive might just hold the answer, and spoiler alert, it's less about those inherent gifts and a lot more about, well, good old-fashioned repetition.
Okay.
We're going to be diving into Trading Psychic by True Thea.
Right.
And while she talks a lot about trading, obviously the core principles, they really apply to pretty much anything you want to master.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. Truthia's journey is a really good example of how these principles are universal, how they can apply to, anything you're trying to get good at.
totally. And she talks about those early days in trading where she's feeling overwhelmed, jumping between different strategies, lacking that discipline. And you know what? Who hasn't been there when they're learning something new?
It's so common. I think, especially these days where we're bombarded with all these promises of shortcuts and hacks and all these, get rich quick schemes. But the reality is that mastery, true mastery, often comes from that consistent, dedicated, repetition.
It's the repetition.
Yeah.
And so Thea, she hits this turning point when she finally decides, okay, I'm going to stick with one strategy, right?
Right.
But here's where it gets interesting, because it's not just about picking the strategy, it's what she does next.
Right.
She commits to showing up every single day.
Every kid.
Not just weekdays, weekends too. Backtesting, reviewing, really putting in the reps, like an athlete would.
Yeah, and that's crucial because our brains, they are wired to recognize patterns. So the more we repeat something, the stronger those neural pathways become. It's like, learning to ride a bike. At first, it's all wobbly and uncertain, but then with repetition, it becomes like second nature.
You don't even think about it, right?
Exactly.
You just do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the confidence comes in too, right? It's not from some inborn talent, but from knowing that, hey, I've put in the work, I've done this again and again and again.
It's the consistency. Repetition builds that confidence because it allows us to move from conscious effort to this unconscious competence. So we're no longer second guessing ourselves at every turn.
Yeah.
We just trust the process, trust the work we put in.
That's so key, because I think a lot of us, myself included, I can think about, trying to learn piano years ago, and I gave up way too quickly because I wasn't a prodigy after a week.
Right.
But it's like, how many of us have dismissed our own abilities simply because we haven't put in that repetition needed to really build those neural pathways, to experience the power of, like you said, that consistent practice?
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've talked about repetition building discipline. We've talked about it building confidence. What about experience? Where does that fit into all of this?
Well, think about it this way. Each repetition is like an opportunity to gather data.
Right.
You're learning something new, you're refining your approach, you're essentially building this database of experience one repetition at a time.
It's like leveling up in a video game almost,
Yeah.
right? Each quest, each battle, it all gives you those experience points that make you a stronger player.
Exactly. Repetition allows you to actually play the game, to understand its nuances, its challenges, its rewards. That's how you gain true experience, not just by reading about it, but by living it repeatedly.
By doing it.
Yes. And here's where we kind of have to address the elephant in the room. Repetition, as we all know, is not always fun.
Oh,
In
yeah.
fact, it can be downright frustrating,
The struggle is real.
especially when you're not seeing those immediate results that you want,
Oh, 100%. It's so easy to get discouraged, especially when you're kind of in the thick of it. And that's where I think Thea's story takes another really interesting turn, because she talks about, at one point, wanting to quit after 2 weeks of seeing absolutely zero progress. And I think we've all been there. So what kept her going? Was it just pure willpower?
It was more about a commitment to the process she had set for herself. You see, she had this routine: show up, backtest, trade, correct mistakes, and become addicted to showing up every day. And these weren't just tasks on a to-do list, they were guiding principles.
Hold on. Become addicted. That sounds a little intense, doesn't it?
It's not about a literal addiction, right?
Yeah.
It's about shifting your mindset, Instead of viewing that repetition as this chore, you reframe it, you turn it into something you crave, something that fuels your growth.
So it's about finding that thing that makes you excited to show up, even when it's tough,
Yeah,
even when you'd rather be doing anything else. How do we tap into that? How do we get to that level?
that's the million-dollar question, right? It's about finding the joy in the journey, in the pursuit of mastery itself. And that deep-seated drive, that's what really separates those who just kind of dabble from those who truly excel.
So it's not just about the repetition. It's about finding the joy in the repetition.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. But how do we actually do that? How do we go from like dreading the grind to actually craving it?
Well, it's going to look different for everyone, right? For some people, it might be about gamifying the process, setting challenges for yourself, tracking your progress, maybe even using some kind of app or a visual tracker.
Oh, I love that.
For others, it might be about finding a community, right? Like a group of like-minded individuals who share that passion, who understand the struggles, who can offer support and encouragement along the way.
That's such a good point about having that support system.
Oh,
Because it's true, right? Even if it's just one other person, having that sense of accountability can make all the difference. And you know what else? Sometimes it's also about celebrating those small wins along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Like acknowledging your own progress, no matter how small, can be incredibly motivating. It's like giving yourself those little pats on the back, to keep that momentum going.
Yes, 100%. It's so important to recognize how far you've come, even if it doesn't feel like much in the moment. Those small victories, they add up over time.
They really do. And I think this is a good reminder that this whole approach, this whole repetition mindset, it's not just about like mastering a specific skill, right?
Yeah.
It's about building this like resilient, adaptable mindset that you can then apply to all areas of your life.
Couldn't agree more. Think about it. When you're disciplined in one area of your life, it often bleeds into other areas,
That's so true. Like when I'm consistent with my workout routine, for instance, I find that I'm also more organized, more focused, just generally more disciplined in other areas of my life.
Exactly.
It's like that discipline, it almost becomes this like positive feedback loop.
It does. And there's actually research to back that up. Studies show that activities requiring discipline and delayed gratification, they can actually strengthen willpower in other areas of your life. It's pretty amazing.
Wow, so it's like building a mental muscle.
Yes. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
I love that analogy. So it's not just about, getting good at one specific thing. It's about building a more resilient, a more capable you.
Exactly. And that's why this whole concept of repetition is so powerful. It's not just about mastering a skill. It's about this incredible ripple effect it can have on your entire life.
It's like that saying, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yes. Now, imagine two people are both trying to master a new skill.
Ooh, I love a good hypothetical.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Okay, so we have person A, who's all about that repetition life. They show up consistently, even when it's tough. They review their progress, they correct their mistakes, they really embrace the grind. Then we have person B, who's more sporadic, gets discouraged easily, always searching for that quick fix. 6 months later, who do you think is further along in their journey?
Based on everything we've been talking about, I'm going to have to go with person A. Even if they're not like naturally gifted, their consistent effort, their commitment to the process, that's going to drive their growth.
You got it. It's not about who's naturally gifted. It's about who's willing to put in the work consistently, day after day. And that, my friend, is the power of repetition.
I love it.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense when you really break it down like that. This has been eye-opening. We've really unpacked this idea of mastery. And it's so clear that it's not about some innate talent or, some stroke of luck. It's about embracing the power of repetition in all its, sometimes unglamorous glory.
Well said. Repetition may not be the sexiest concept, but it's the foundation upon which true mastery is built. It's kind of like that saying, right? The harder you work, the luckier you get. But instead of luck, maybe we should call it preparedness.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, the more you repeat something, the more prepared you are to capitalize on those opportunities, to navigate those challenges, to just be in the right place at the right time.
I love that. It's not about wishing for luck. It's about creating the conditions for it.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to Thea's final point, which I think is incredibly powerful. She argues that the discipline we cultivate through repetition, that discipline in one area of our lives, it often spills over into other areas.
Oh, I totally get that. Like when I'm consistent with my writing, for example, I find that I'm also more organized, more focused, and just generally more disciplined in other areas of my life,
Right. It's like that discipline becomes a habit, a way of being. And that can have a huge impact on your overall well-being, your sense of self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy is a great word. It's that belief in your own ability to succeed, to figure things out, to navigate those challenges like you were saying.
Exactly. And repetition is one of the most powerful tools we have for building that self-belief. Because every time you show up, every time you push through a challenge, every time you see even a small improvement, You're reinforcing that belief that you are capable of growth and change.
It's like proving it to yourself over and over again. Wow. Well, this has been such a powerful conversation. I feel like we've really demystified this whole idea of mastery. It's not about some like innate talent or some stroke of luck. It's about embracing the power of repetition in all its, sometimes unglamorous glory.
Well said. Repetition may not be the sexiest concept, but it's the foundation upon which true mastery is built.
It's the secret sauce. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a thought, a question to ponder as you go about your day. What's one area of your life where a little more showing up, a little more consistency, a little more repetition could make a big difference? Just something to think about.
It's a question worth asking ourselves, not just today, but every day.
So true. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the power of repetition. Until next time, keep showing up, keep learning, and keep embracing the journey.